Like there. Okay.
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्।
No problem, Danny. I know what getting kids to school's like. It's that time for you there in WA. All right, welcome. We're just going to give everybody one couple more minutes to come in live. If a lot of people are going to be watching the recording today, which is absolutely A-okay as well. Mondays can be a bit of a tricky day for these sorts of things, but I thought we'd start the week off with a beautiful, I'm just going to stop the music, not the recording. Where is it? There it is there. Okay. So yes, Mondays can be a little bit tricky. So I've had a few messages. Lots of you are joining with the recording. If you're joining with the recording, hello. Welcome to those of you that are here live. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes just to gather themselves and come on in before we start and kick off with a lovely meditation and a bit of an introduction. It's finally starting to warm up a little bit here in Newcastle, which is nice. I'm still freezing, but it's starting to feel like spring is starting to arrive. We've got the beautiful wattle starting to appear. And in the Ayurvedic, interestingly enough, in the Ayurvedic calendar, we tend to follow 6 seasons. Freezing here, yeah, Danny, it's so cold. We tend to, lean towards the 6th season in the Indigenous calendars, which is nice. So I know here that our Australian Indigenous have spring is starting to spring is, oh, there goes my dog, nearly sprung with the wattle appearing. So it's always hopeful. Hey, always gives me a little bit of hope when I start to see the wattle coming. That's Lulu barking at everyone walking past. No. We have my little space at the moment where we're staying at my mum and dad's. It's in the front room, so I can see, she can sit here at the window while we're working, because she's my sidekick, and watch all the dogs walking past. And she barks. Come on. Okay. All right. So we are going to get started. Now, first of all, I would just give you a quick rundown of how we're going to work over the next 3 days. So the next 3 days, we are going to be chatting about, they're going to be broken up into 3 sessions. This is a massive topic and there is so much that I can cover, but I'm going to keep it really simple and through the lens of Ayurveda and yoga. Okay, so there's a lot of science behind perimenopause and menopause now, which is really great, which is actually meeting up with ancient wisdom of Ayurveda, which is really, really cool. So over the next 3 days, we'll dive deep into how we can support ourselves, take action, and be proactive in the season of perimenopause, okay? And beyond as well. So it's not just for those of us in perimenopause, and we'll talk about what that means as well. But it is, a time where we can really start to understand what our symptoms are telling us. We can really feel good naturally. We don't have to trudge through this season. So we're going to go talk about embracing it with joy, and really seeing it as a beautiful rite of passage for us as women moving into our wise women era. So I've also got each day after each session, there'll be a little bit of homework, a little bit of integration to help you, really anchor in the teachings. And there's going to be a little free access to my Ayurveda ebook. So I'm going to give everybody, this is quite an in-depth ebook on the basics of Ayurveda. And you'll also get all the notes and the recordings as well. So those of you that are watching the recording, the notes are on the little button underneath the video, and you'll be able to download those each day, and the homework will be there for the day. So we'll talk about that at the end. But before we get stuck into things, I'd just like to invite you to now just take a moment, if you can, to close down your eyes. If you've got glasses on, it's a good idea to take your glasses off. And we just want to close down the eyes, and we're going to start with a little meditation and acknowledgement. So just consciously breathing in through your nose, feeling the earth beneath your feet, beneath your seat, your sit bones, whether you're sitting on a chair, a mat, a bed, driving in the car maybe, don't close your eyes. But just come into conscious breath. I just want you to consciously focus on the breath coming in through the nose and out through the nose. And as you're going out through the nose, I want you to drop your shoulders, just relax your shoulders. With each exhale, just relax a little bit more. Maybe you relax your jaw. Breathing beautiful energy and prana in through the nose. Out through the nose with every out breath, just relaxing and taking a little bit deeper, sinking into your seat, just relaxing, still sitting upright, but just relaxing those shoulders and relaxing the jaw, the tongue, the face muscles. First of all, I'd like to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I currently reside and work, which is the Awabakal people here in Newcastle or Lake Macquarie. I'd also like to acknowledge the golden thread of teachers, particularly in the Ayurveda, women's wellness and yoga lineage. Because without the opportunity to sit at our teachers' feet, all of this information is just information. It's information that we can just Google and find. But when we work and we sit at our teachers' feet and embody the wisdom that they share and apply it to our own lives, it becomes beautiful ancient wisdom that we can translate to our modern world and our modern life. There's much to learn, so we just pay reverence to the teachers of that golden thread. I'd also like to acknowledge our red thread being the female lineage in your family. Our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunts, and then those beautiful, beautiful young girls and women that we are here for today to heal doing the work in healing our red thread and healing the lineage for our children, for our daughters, even our sons. And topics of perimenopause and menopause have been over the years quite taboo. Women have been cast out, called hysterical, going crazy, losing their mind. Thankfully, we are now learning and arming ourselves with all the beautiful wisdom, as well as the science that backs what we've always known as women. The science is starting to prove what we've always known, that there are real things going on in our body, in all the layers of our body. Our physical, our emotional, and our spiritual. And then when you're ready, I just invite you to gently open the eyes and come back to the room. Put your glasses back on if you need to. And we're welcoming Lisa in. Welcome, Lisa, for popping in. And if you can, if you're not driving and you're able to, what I'd like to do now is just sitting there thinking about this season of perimenopause and thinking what's brought you here today. So whether you're watching the recording or whether you're here live, if you're here live, drop it into the chat now. Some of, the reasons or the little whispers or the prompts that made you think, this is something that I need. Maybe it's some symptoms you've been experiencing that has drawn you to join us today. If you're here and you're watching the recording, which I know many of you are, being a Monday morning, please feel free to share with me on social media through DMs or email me some of the reasons, some of the symptoms that you might be feeling right now that's brought you here. Along with where you're joining from, whereabouts in the world are you? I'd love to know where everybody is in the world. I know we've got Danny over west. Lisa, I'm not sure where you are. Lisa G. And if you're, again, watching the recording, please feel free to shoot me a DM as well. Love to hear from you and where everybody's tuning in from. So some of the symptoms that prompted, I'll share a little bit about my story and some of the symptoms that prompted me to want to share all about this is, you may have seen my email where, one day I was trail running, and then the next day I wasn't. And it really shook me and it really took me by surprise. There were lots of other things apart from the physical, as in this physical pain that I experienced in the osteoarthritis diagnosis I had in my hips and some tendonitis and just not being able to do what I used to do. That kind of sent me on this trajectory to learn and to dive deep into what this all was and what was happening. I hadn't really heard too much about perimenopause, and I started to experience symptoms like waking at 3 a.m. in the morning and not being able to sleep, waking up with anxiety, with worry, wanting to take more time on my own. Like, I've always been a really social person, and like having millions of people around me and noise and all of the business has never bothered me up until now. And it's like, I really feel this need to retreat, to be on my own, to read books, to journal, to meditate, to do all the things. And these things were really started to become quite obvious. My moods up and down, all of this mood swings and whatnot. And that's when I started to dive into perimenopause and started to learn. And I had a girlfriend over, a beautiful woman in my community, and she, her name's Kimmy. And she was over one day and we're having a cup of tea literally around my kitchen table. And we were talking over the kitchen benches. I was making beautiful Tulsi rose tea, of course, because that's my favorite. And I always give that to my guests when they come, Tulsi rose tea. And I was chatting to her and I was telling her about it. She's like, oh, Dal, you've started. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you've started the change of life. You've started your perimenopause. Now, this friend was past. She was post perimenopause. Now, menopause is broken up into 3 phases. You've got the pre, which is the perimenopause. So this season that we're in it can start as early as 35 to 45. 48, 49, 50, that sort of time. So this pre and perimenopausal time can go for up to 10 years. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes less. It can go for a couple of years or go for 10 years. And then you've got menopause, which is so the perimenopause season, we start to notice these symptoms, we start to notice changes, we start to see our periods come and go, or they might be slightly changed. Some might be heavy, some might be lighter. We might skip one. We start to feel mood changes. We start to feel those hormonal changes. So this is the season where we really need to tune in and listen to what's going on in our body, and we can really turn some of this around, and we can do that beautifully and naturally, okay, when we look at through the lens of Ayurveda especially, and some other natural things as well, and lifestyle changes and whatnot. And then we've got when we stop our period, so we don't have a period and we just stop bleeding for that 12 months. And then that menopause period, when we stop and we haven't got a period for 12 months, once we hit that, we're postmenopausal. So you're literally, the day that you realize that it's been 12 months and your periods have stopped and I haven't had a period for 12 months, then you're post-menopause. So it really is this time in perimenopause that we can do our best work in preparing for our for that later time. Okay, so this is the time where a lot of us are still having we're still quite busy with young children. So we're technically, our responsibilities lie in that pitta season of life, which is a season of life. And if you know anything about Ayurveda, it is the 3 doshas. And I'm going to start to tell you about, I've kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but I'll tell you a good story. But when we look at, let me just jump back a little bit at what Ayurveda actually is. So it's the ancient science of India, and it's the sister science to Ayurveda. And it is a way that we can move with the seasons of life, the seasons of nature, and we align with that, and we can find beautiful balance and harmony. So the idea is that we have 3 doshas, and everybody's made up of their own unique dosha. And now I have on my website a quiz that you can take if you're not quite sure. And we're not going to get too hung up on doshas as in what we are and our personality and our body type. We're going to talk more about doshas over the next few days in terms of the symptoms that we're experiencing and the imbalances that we're seeing in perimenopause and how we can balance those. But just to understand the concept, we've got these 3 body types, mind body types. So Vata is our combination. So I've got incense burning in here and I've shut the door and it's a bit smoky. We've got Vata, which is a combination of air and space. And what this is responsible for, Vata, is moving things through the body. It's transition, it's movement, it's air, it's space. Okay, so think of that sort of responsible for moving through the body. It's wind. It can show up in our digestive system as wind and bloating and that sort of thing. So that's quite a simple explanation. Pitta is a mixture of fire and water. So that's responsible for heat actions in the body and things like digestion. Agni is fire. So that's our digestive system, needs to be burning and needs to be hot. It can be responsible for lots of different perimenopausal symptoms, as well as Vata can be as well. So Vata is movement and moving things through. Pitta is heat and action, okay, and like hot action, fast action. Kapha is earth and water, So this duo is responsible for holding and nourishing in the body. So we're holding and nourishing in the body. So if you want to have a little look at your dosha and start to understand where you might sit as sort of a baseline and what you were born with, you can do the dosha quiz. And inside this free ebook that I'm giving you all, there's a lot more information on that, and you'll find some more, on my blogs and whatnot. So that will dive a little bit deeper into that. But for this purpose, over the next few days, we're particularly looking at our experience in perimenopause. So great. So Danny, you've said change in menstruation symptoms, ovulation pain. Yeah, that's something that I noticed a lot as well, was this ovulation. I was really became apparent when I was ovulating. A full week of bloating, heightened stress and anxiety, and you're only about to turn 40. So you're still only quite young. And this is sort of the onset of definitely the perimenopause. And I think a lot of us in this natural health and wellness space, we've always been quite aware of our body and if you're quite in tune, if you meditate, you practice yoga, you're quite in tune. So that's a really good place to be, because we can pick up on these whispers. If we're really busy, we're not focusing on what's going on in our body, we're just kind of pushing through, this is where we can start to topple and really find that our body starts to get some imbalances. So it's really great to be quite aware of it, those at the onset of the changes. And Lisa's on the Gold Coast. She's in menopause at 42 after a hysterectomy last year. Okay. Yep. So studying Ayurveda goddess. Oh, fantastic. My goal is to never rely on medication for this. Absolutely. And it is something that is really tempting for a lot of women to go on medication when they start to experience these symptoms. But then there's also a lot of research that HRT is not as great as it's cracked up to be, and it's not suitable for a lot of women as well. So there's a higher risk of breast cancer, of dementia, and there's a lot of studies going into that as well. So there are definitely lots of ways, Lisa, that you can really help to balance your hormones naturally. And also the thing with hormonal, in this season is this perimenopause and then menopause. It's like our hormones fluctuate, so that it's not like we just need estrogen. It's not like we just need that, but they fluctuate. So yeah, so Jenny's saying, yeah, you suddenly love to be alone. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? How you just suddenly, like, all of a sudden it's just like, I'm so good with my own company. Like, I actually dream of going away for a weekend on my own and just reading, writing, yoga, like literally on my own. It'd be so good. I did do that a little bit in January in India. I ended up being in Goa on my own quite a bit, which was really nice. So yeah, it does help if you can get away. Definitely a season of going within. So that's a little bit about that. So let's dive in a little bit more to what's actually going on. So the number one thing that I want women to understand is that perimenopause is not it's not an illness. It's not a diagnosis as such, like you're getting sick. It's a, oh, I lost you for a sec. It's a natural process. It's something that we go through. And Lisa's going through it a little bit quicker and a little bit faster because she's had a medical intervention because she needed to get a hysterectomy. And that can be really scary in itself. So all of a sudden it's like bam, but it can, for a lot of women, and most women, perimenopause can feel like it just comes on really quickly. And yeah, it can feel like a real whack in the face. It's like, hang on a minute, life has changed. And that's where, this is the work that I'm doing now, is I just want women not to feel that fear, but to actually get excited about it. Now, I'll tell you a little story about another rite of passage. Was when I actually first got my period when I was a young woman. So when I first started my period, everybody around me, all my girlfriends, all had their period for like a year or more. And I was one of those late period getters, when you sort of going, why haven't I got my period yet? And I remember we used to get like a test for scoliosis, and I had to keep going back every year because I hadn't had my period, and all my girlfriends didn't have to go back for this test. Anyway, they were all complaining, and there was this real darkness around it. Oh God, it's such an inconvenience. And, my mum said that she hates it and she did this. So there was all this narrative around it when I was growing up and getting my period. And I actually couldn't wait to get it. Like, I was actually really excited. I was like, I really want to get my period because I think I'll be a woman. Like, I'll be a woman when I get my period. Anyway, so the day came, and I remember my best friend, Christy Butler. I remember Christy Butler. She was over having a sleepover at my place, and that was the day I got my period. And I was so excited, but I had to really, because my best friend was there and because she'd been complaining about it and all the things, and I was kind of felt a little bit embarrassed as well because I was only one girl. I had two brothers. So, you know, it wasn't really a female household as such. Like, I didn't have a sister. And I remember going, sort of climbing up the stairs to my mum's room and telling my mum, but actually was trying to contain my excitement. And I actually, like, I look back and I think that's really sad that I had to contain my excitement about that rite of passage. If I had have known then what such a privilege, I kind of intuitively knew as a kid, basically, I intuitively knew that it was exciting and I was looking forward to it and I was becoming a woman, but I didn't have the vocabulary or the words to put it into a rite of passage. But how beautiful if it had have been that celebrated like that, and if it had have been, you know, more within my group of friends, been a really cool thing, it would have been a beautiful celebration. Which brings me to a little book reading I want to share with you. Let me just grab the book. So now I think that, you know, has got a lot to do with why I'm feeling so passionate about treating this perimenopause season of life and menopause as a celebration of that transitioning into your wise woman era and really embracing it with joy. It is just so beautiful. Now, this book is Women's Power to Heal by Mai Tawari. So this is, and you'll hear a lot about this, Lisa, in your Ayurveda Goddess training with Katie. So Mai Tawari was Katie's teacher, Katie Rose's teacher, who was my teacher. So you can see the golden thread of lineage is coming through here. And she spent a lot of time with my teacher, or our teacher being, I know Danny studies a bit with Katie and whatnot as well. And this was her teacher. So she had um, a story where she had to have surgery and was in menopause early as well, Lisa. So if you read her story yet, yeah, it's your Bible. And The Path to Practice as well is her first book, which is really great. So I wanted to share this section, which is in the chapter Light on Menopause. And this is what I intuitively knew. This is why sometimes I think in a past life I was definitely not of this this culture. I think I was probably Indian in a past life. Anyway, in the Hindu culture, at the age of 48, both women and men are inaugurated. I can never say that word. Inaugurated into a life of vanapratha, ashrama, celebrated by a special ceremony. In this tradition, a woman does not walk her crucial rites of passage alone. She is upheld by her husband as the goddess of the home and supported by him through her growth into wisdom. Symbolically, the retreat into the deep forest is the quest for gathering spiritual wisdom. More than symbolism, in days of yore, men, women, and couples literally retreated into the sanctuary of the forest to spend the rest of their lives in their cultivation of inner freedom. So this is a really powerful idea or powerful ritual that we just don't do in our Western culture. And it's something that, you know, I think all women, when they turn 48, instead of a 50th, let's have a 48th birthday and get our husbands to carry us on a throne around our husbands or wives or partners or whatever it is we've got, you know, and really celebrate this time of transition into that becoming a spiritual elder, a wise woman in your community. So that's the sort of essence that, you know, we bring into this work, which I really love. So, and I'll pop these books that I share with you as well will be all in the notes as well. And it's funny, I was listening to a podcast this morning with a doctor who's doing a lot of research with perimenopause and menopause and the brain. And it was so scientific and so medicalized, but yet there was so many threads of things that these ancient texts and this wisdom through Ayurveda, I kept thinking, we've known this. We know the correlation between the uterus and the brain and all the business. So it's really quite interesting. They're just learning, they're just backing it up. And even this doctor said, she's awesome, although she does advocate for HRT with some people, but she said that her research is basically just to prove what we've always known and what women have always known, and she's doing the research now. Like, that's her mission, is to do this research. And there are different, and what she talks about is there are different symptoms that are brain function symptoms, and then there are symptoms that are ovary symptoms. So they're different correlations. So things like hot flushes, brain fog, forgetfulness, sleeplessness, those sorts of things are what she's learning in her science, in her research, are from brain functions. And then there's the vaginal dryness, and those other red flags that we experience that could be, and the skin dryness, like the reduction of juiciness in our body because our sex hormones, so they're hormonal, and that's our ovary symptoms from our ovaries. So that's the symptoms of our sex hormones reducing or fluctuating, and our body kind of literally drying up. Okay, so that can be something that happens there. So what's happening is, with these hormonal changes, the stress hormones are interacting with the sex hormones and causing this problem. So that's where your adrenaline and your cortisol increases, and that's what's causing the inability for us to handle stress a lot worse. Like, we can't handle stress how we used to. And this is all the sort of scientific stuff that was sort of backing up this ancient Ayurvedic wisdom. And I like to, bring the two together because I think there's so much value in bringing the both together. And although I'm not a doctor or anything, I'm not that clever, but I do get excited about how this modern research is just kind of catching up to our ancient wisdom. So yeah, so the adrenaline and the cortisol is increasing. So that's where that I can't cope feeling comes from. I need to retreat. I need to go into the forest. I need to take time out of my own, is coming from, because of those adrenaline cortisol hormones are coming up and down. Now, when we look at the Ayurvedic clock and time, some of our most vulnerable times for symptoms. So you know how you go, oh, just at this certain time of the day, I feel like I need to just have a rest, which is generally the afternoon for women. Between the time of 2 and sort of 6 o'clock in the evening is a really great time for us as women to take a rest if we can. I mean, I know not all of us have the privilege of working from home, but the days that we are at home, or even if we're, out and about, even if it's 5 minutes between 2 and 6, just to close down the eyes and just focus. And we're going to, in tomorrow's session, I'm going to give you some beautiful tools that you can do in the car, at the kids' football training, walking the dog, whatnot, but taking a little bit of time there in that junction, which is that pitta time, to really take some time to rest through that afternoon period, because that's when we're most vulnerable, and our symptoms can be the worst in that pitta time. Then we've got seasons, so early autumn, which we've gone through, which is great. We're nearly coming into spring, so we're actually literally in those beautiful rhythms of nature where we're about to come out of the winter and start to feel better. And as I said earlier in the beginning, like, I'm already starting to feel better. I'm starting to feel that pick up after sort of the craziness of autumn, because autumn is Vata time. And when we look at our symptoms and we look at perimenopause, it is a Vata season of life. So we've got our different seasons of life that align with the seasons of nature. So we've got the Pitta season of life, which is our summer, our spring, and that's when we are very busy working, raising children, paying bills, renovating homes, buying, selling homes, like doing all of that sort of thing. That's our real Pitta season of life, and it's a very much doing and busy. And the goddess that aligns with that season is very much Lakshmi. Okay, so Lakshmi is the goddess of the householder. She's the goddess of of that mothering, earning money. We often think of Lakshmi as just abundance and whatnot, but she actually signifies that time as well, that season of our life, where supporting our family, we're growing our wealth, we're doing those sorts of things, and it's that period of time moving into this beautiful perimenopause and menopause season of life. Perimenopause is autumn. Okay, so again, that's a Vata season. With us, it's that air, it's moving, it's space, it's, you know, the autumn leaves are falling, the wind's picking up, you know, it's that time moving into the winter, which is generally your Kapha season of life, where it's time to hunker down, get comfy, get cozy, sit, nourish, lots of nourishing foods and soups and whatnot. Autumn's all about trying to keep grounded. Okay. And so they can be some of our most vulnerable times. Now, knowing what a red flag is, so coming back to some of our symptoms as well, is knowing what a red flag could be, as opposed to, you know, what is that red flag, or as opposed to, oh, this is something that I can easily just sort of work through. Danny's got, I haven't yet experienced that drying up. Can I ask, does that continue, or is it a temporary thing? So that is it's generally a temporary thing. So the thing with menopause is this is a temporary period. It's not forever. We don't continue this into postmenopausal life. We actually, and I've got a lot of postmenopausal friends and family, like my best friend who's my age is postmenopausal, which is crazy. Like, she's done, dusted over. She's like, I feel the best that I've felt in my whole life. She's sold her really busy business. She's moved to the coast. Her children, she had children before me. Her children are grown up and working now. And she's sort of that, they're all still at home, but she's in this beautiful season where it's just like, oh, she's sort of shedded those Lakshmi years, the householder years, and now she's really enjoying not retirement, but more time on her own, you know, and she's in that season. So no, Danny, that's the good news. It doesn't last forever. But there is one thing which we'll talk more about on the third day, on Wednesday, but Shatavari, which is the Ayurvedic herb, actually has the ability to work in the body to help to produce more juiciness and to fix that dryness and hold more fluid and water in the body and juices in the body. So Shatavari, and we'll also talk a lot more about all the foods that will help with the drying up as well. And it's really warm, warm, cooked, juicy foods. But we'll go into more detail with that on Wednesday, because otherwise we'll be here all day. But it's a great question. It is not forever, which is really exciting. So knowing what the red flags are. So the red flags are some things that, you know, when you're experiencing symptoms that, you know, like when you're going like it's an 8, it's a 10, like the symptoms are really extreme, that's when you've got a red flag and you need to start to think, okay, I need to look at this particular symptom and how I can start to balance it. So, for example, if you had a really dry vagina, you've got that real drying up and pain, like it's really painful, your skin's really dry, then you would like to start to look at what you can do. But also with perimenopause, if you get awareness and you start to support your body really well in the early years, it will really change your experience significantly. And that's what the idea of these 3 days are, and what we work through in my Marigold membership. It's about getting in quick and getting it happening and really supporting the body and finding balance earlier to make sure that that experience is much better for you, because you have that acute, which for me was my osteoarthritis, my tendonitis. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sleep because I was waking up with really bad anxiety at 3 a.m. and just could not get back to sleep, like literally heart palpitations. And I had to take stock and think, these are red flags. This is not really natural. This is not just a normal fluctuation. This is out of control. Okay. And one of the first sessions that we've got inside the Marigold membership is actually a charting exercise where we can actually chart our symptoms and look at them, whether they're Pitta, Vata, or Kapha symptoms. And then we've got tools and tonics and things to support it. But generally we look at this is a Vata season. So first we treat Vata imbalance. Okay. So that's grounding, more time at home, you know, beautiful baths, like lots of different tonics and whatnot. So there's lots of ways that we can treat it, which we'll talk a lot more about tomorrow as well. Something that's really interesting in a lot of the research shows that the larger you live your life in your 20s and your 30s, the more the higher the, what's the word, like the worst you'll experience perimenopause and menopause. Okay, so what that is if, and for example, I'm being a pitta, workaholic, um, or Bikram yoga aholic, Ashtanga, like all the high, like I always was attracted to party hard, play hard, exercise hard sort of thing. Like that was me. Very different life now because it's just not sustainable. So that's why I think I experience, well, I know what I personally experience, and there's other reasons as well, which we'll touch on in a sec, but the really acute anxiety, the osteoarthritis, the joint pain, the tendonitis, like those really acute inflammatory symptoms, which are pitta. And that's where that you can start to see the correlation between the symptoms and the dosha. So you think hot flushes, weird, scary dreams when you're premenstrual, really quick to anger, like they're pitta imbalances. Okay, so, and then the harder you live is generally a reflection on your dosha. It just all is tied together. So pittas work hard, they play hard, whatnot. Vata might experience a lot more anxiety. So there's different experiences. So that's where understanding what's happening and what the different symptoms are can really help. Another big thing that we look at through the lens of Ayurveda is looking at our past hurts. Okay, so our past hurts and what's happened to us in our life can really affect our body. And if you've read the book The Body Holds the Score, it's a really, really great book. And I'll pop that in the notes as well. So the body, is it The Body Holds the Score? I can't remember who, I think that's what it's called. Can't remember who it's written by, but it's a psychologist. And he talks about how our body traps trauma. And so that shows up in our joints, and all different places in our body. So I know that after myself personally having, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. And I'll drop the link in the notes for this session as well. It's a really great read, and it's also really great. The audiobook version is really cool too. You can listen as you're driving along in the car, and it's so great. So he talks a lot about holding these past hurts and trauma in parts of our body and how that shows up. And now Ayurveda teaches us this as well. So again, here's the science, the modern science, catching up to this ancient wisdom. And we can really, like particularly for women, the hips is a really big place where we can store our resentment, trauma, anger. I had a really scary ectopic pregnancy when I was 42. And I know that that's where it's manifesting, this trauma, this hurt, this is in my hips. And then I've also got, you've got to look back through your ancestral, like your ancestral lineage and your hereditary, what you're susceptible to in your family as well. Like my aunties have both had hip replacements. It's a really good practice, and we teach this a lot in Ayurveda, is to look back at, and modern medicine tells you this as well, but really look back through the history of the women in your family and that red thread and what they've experienced medically as imbalances throughout their life. And then how can that align with how we are now doing the work for that inner healing for ourselves? Okay, so the work that we're doing for our own sexual healing, to heal past sexual traumas, birth traumas, like all of those sorts of things, we can really do the work. And this time tells us, this time where we have this natural desire to want to go within and do the work. So this is a really beautiful time to do it. This is the time that we're naturally meant to do it. because we're starting to ease off on responsibilities and busyness of life, and we can really take some time to do it. So if you know that yourself that there's some work that needs to be done there, that's really holding some symptoms strong in your body or holding up some emotional stuff for you, it's a great time now to dive into that, work with a practitioner, work with a professional, and do the work, or just, work with yourself and God spiritually to do that work, which is really beautiful time to do it. So the other thing that I wanted to mention today as well is, with all this reduction of juiciness in the body, that vitality is ojas, is what we call in the yogic and Ayurvedic philosophy, is ojas, which means our vitality, our radiance. Okay, so again, that's kind of matching up with the hormonal fluctuations and shifts in our body. So that's where we can really look at practices that restore that ojas in the body, which is awesome. So we'll dive tomorrow into really looking at what practices that are going to help to restore ojas, help us to go within to do the work, help calm our nervous system. And we'll work through a few of those beautiful practices like japa meditation, nadi shodhana, some different things. And we'll go deeper into how to really cultivate sattva in our life so we can start to feel really beautiful and, start to get that radiance back. Anu says, this came up a lot for many years during peri time. I had to look at my ancestral lineage. Absolutely. And my Tawari talks a lot about that in this book, and we do a lot of work actually in Marigold in our yoga sessions. We're doing a lot of restorative yoga at the moment and looking at our ancestral lineage and looking at what it is that we need to really look at to sort of start to heal ourselves within, because we've got that power and we can pop this pill, do this exercise, do all these different things, but until we actually start to become aware of it, and sometimes it's just awareness, and none of us are perfect, so we've all got work to do, but sometimes it's just literally being aware and then just saying, what do I need? What do I need? How can I heal this in my body? Lisa G. Jane Hardwick Collins speaks a lot about this. She's amazing. I have got on my to-do, like on my wish list, I would love to do her year-long program, the Women's Shamanic year-long program. Love to do that. One of my friends did it, and she said it was just incredible. So it could be my time in the next couple of years to do that. In my wise women transition time will be amazing this, during this period. So yeah, she's a great one. I'll drop her link to her in the notes as well. So I wanted to open it up if you've got any questions. That sort of wraps up the content that I wanted to share with you today. Has anybody got any other questions or would like to share anything more? Because you've already shared some really beautiful things. And then I'm going to read the card that I pulled for us this morning as well to sort of wrap up the day. So I pulled this beautiful card. So Sita this is from I love this deck. I'm not really a huge fan of Sahara Rose, although she's very, cool, but she's definitely not my demographic anymore. She's still so young and vibrant. Anyway, maybe it's because I'm drawn to that and I want to be that. So this is from Sahara Rose. So this is from this deck. It's such a gorgeous deck. I love it. As if any of you know, I'm very creative. I love to be creative and do a lot of website and different designs, and I'm just obsessed with this. So Sita is the goddess of devotion and loyalty. What the reading says is you have devoted your entire self to a personal project, and your loyalty cannot be questioned. Even in the face of harsh treatment, you have endured in the name of love. Sita remained loyal to her husband Ram, despite being told he was dead, and when another king wanted to marry her. When her husband returned, he did not believe her fidelity. She said, "If I am telling the truth, I will jump into this fire and I will not be burned." She stepped into the fire untouched, proving that she was indeed loyal. Sita understands, how much you truly care and the sacrifices you have made. You have displayed selflessness, devotion, which is one of the most holy things we can do in serving those you love, and you serve the divine. So that was a really lovely reading. And the energy that I'm getting for that is so pertinent for us as women. We have, we're women of service. We're women who always give to our family, to our husbands, to our wives, to our partners, to our parents, to everybody around us. And I thought that the message that I got from this card was like, it's now time for you to actually start investing in yourself and really taking time to understand what's going on in this season of perimenopause. And it's okay to take that bit of time to yourself. It's okay to show yourself some loving devotion through the divine. So thinking about how you can show up for yourself is the first thing for your homework for today. And I would love for you to share with us on Instagram or email me or DM me some ways that you can actually really show some beautiful devotion to yourself and to this season of life, and how you're going to move through it and start to change your own experience, and in turn start to break that cycle and that lineage for the women in your red thread as well. I think that would be a really beautiful thing to share. I'd love to know if you wanted to share that with me. If you don't want to share it, just do some journaling on it, and think about that energy of devotion and loyalty, but to yourself, because we're often the first person to, like, we'll just put our own, okay, well, it's too busy. I've got to get the kids to football. I've got to do this. I won't go to yoga today, or I won't meditate this morning because it's just a bit too busy. But in actual fact, if we do that, especially now in this season of perimenopause, it's going to set us up for all sorts of things. It's going to set us up for a better day ahead, better relationships, better sleep, better energy, all the things that's going to really help to build that ojas as well, which we talk a lot more about tomorrow. The next thing is, anyone got anything about that? Danny's just written, thanks, Edwina. I'm here as I begin the transition into perimenopause to learn all that I can. No specific questions. Beautiful. Love it. Expressed as a season. I'm 2 years post. It is starting to get easier. Beautiful, Anu. It is definitely getting easier. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I've talked to lots and lots of women pre-menopause, perimenopause, menopause, post, and it is like we all experience it differently, but there is one thing that remains, is that it gets easier, and it does not last forever, which is really cool to know. Okay, so I will, and the other little thing is to really have a think about, so thinking about that card, and how you can, sort of start to show up for yourself and show yourself some devotion and loyalty. But also really think about what are some of the red flags that you've got, that you're experiencing, that you're seeing, where you can remove a bit of that stress and off your plate to really help start to balance this experience a little bit more, and just becoming more aware of those whispers and the signs of going. And coming back to the season, like really anchor into that fact that it is just a season of life. It's just a season of life, like all seasons. And I love that when we look at in this beautiful ancient wisdom, and also with the work that Jane Hardwick Collins does, it's everything is a season. And we've got, when we can put vocabulary to that and we can name it, it just feels so much different. It feels like, when you first have a baby and the nights are endless and you're up breastfeeding all night and you think this is never going to end. One of the best things that, my friends, because they all had babies before me, they just kept saying, this will pass. This is only a little tiny snippet of your life that you're up all night and not sleeping. It will pass. And so too will this season, but let's make it as joyful and as fun as we can. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing from you about your homework today. And we will be back here again same time tomorrow. Thank you.